it was really strange. Just gonna get some little arm movements going here. It was so strange at first, when we first started doing these, and there was no one in the building other than staff, and no other voices, and it seemed so quiet. So this has been a treat to hear the kids in the hallways. Just bring that arm up, kind of wave the hand around a little bit. And get the feet apart, get them moving. We just want to warm up a little bit. So, reopening is going to be much more gradual than shutting down was. Shutting down, it was like, and that was it. The reopening will be gradual, and Jay will have more information on it as information becomes available. And those of you that I may have run into in the grocery store or elsewhere, or actually on Tuesday, yesterday, when I left here, saw one of the couples who are usually in the Silver and Fit class, and they were here at the facility to walk outside. Always good to hear from any of you, to see any of you, and just know that we all miss you so much. Okay, loosen those legs up. And by the way, flying solo is not my thing. Get used to it, but it's been great being able to work with Jay, and I'm sure it has been more enjoyable for all of you because, well, for one thing, you got to see Jay finding out just what it is that we do. Okay, gonna bring both arms up. Straight elbows, those arms are pretty high. Get just a little bit more stretch there. And bring the arms out and down kind of slowly. Okay. This is early in the class to do this one, so take it a little easy. Get the weight on that one foot. And just start to fold. Don't bring the fingertips down any deeper than maybe midway on the shin. Come back up. Over the opposite leg. So just kind of easing into this bend. Keeping in mind that when you're doing this bend, you've got a lot of weight on that supporting leg. And so it's putting a pretty good workload on that knee. So again, just part way down. And part way down. Shift the weight out. Bend the knee. You're toeing out a little bit. Side to side. This is just modifying a side lunge. So we're not coming back to feet together and then stepping out on the lunge. We're shifting side to side. So we're getting to the end position of a lunge without starting in the middle. So again, some work for the hips, a lot of work for the legs here. Do that with the arms out. Remember, you're toeing out. You have a pretty broad stance. When you get out to the outbound portion of this, just take a look. Foot, ankle, knee, hip, all the way up to the shoulder, a straight line. So you're not overbalancing one way or the other. You're putting that weight over and staying very secure with it. And even though these are not deep bends with the knees, and they don't have to be, that gives those legs a pretty good workout. So we'll loosen them up a little bit. Oh, with a few steps in between, not a bad idea. Taking the arms out. And then just bring one arm up to level, up, out to level. That's working the shoulder area, upper back. And lift out to the side. side is the one that sometimes may feel a little bit tougher. The lift forward is usually pretty comfortable, but this lift to the side and coming up, that's not the more comfortable one. If you look at where the shoulder and arm are when you're just standing, you can see that bringing the arm forward is not requiring the shoulder to twist. Bringing the arm outward, a little bit different. So, all of those use the shoulder a little bit differently, and you need to use your shoulder in the way that it prefers. Okay, going to get feet reasonably far apart. We might as well get a few of these squats in right now. So what we'll do is get the arms coming in across, overlapping. Be sure you keep the heels tight to the floor so the full length of the foot. Going downward, not rolling over forward. So a downward move. Reason for making sure those feet are firmly on the floor. And if you don't let the heels start to roll up, is so that the hips can take a part of the workload on this. It's not all dependent on the knees. Good. Just move legs up a little bit again. So if we take a step slanting backward and swing the arms pretty good distance back, bring them forward across, take them back, sweep around the hip and you step in on that one. Stepping back, big arm swing. Back, slanting. That's a real sharp slant. Backward, forward, backward. So that gets it. Big arm swing, nice and long. And the weight shift, so it goes onto the back foot, comes onto the front foot, goes onto the back foot, and just stepping in. One more. So, the end of it. Those big moves. And even with this, even though the arms are pretty relaxed at this point, just a nice big swing around the hip. And then if we go around one hip, then the other, knees bend a little bit, bring the arms up and over. Hands just kind of drop down, starts the opposite way. So around the hip, bend, arms down. Around the hip, bend, and now I'm going to do a couple more of these. Because it gives a chance for the arms to be pretty relaxed on the arm swing, but then they kind of go to work on that big lift. And again, weight shifts. It shifts to the side of the arm swing, to the opposite side, and then steadies on both feet. So this is the last part of this. We'll bring feet together. Just roll a little bit, nice and easy. While you're doing that, just hunch those shoulders up, take them down, bring them up. Keep the neck relaxed, keep the shoulders relaxed, hunch them up, take them down, hunch them up, take them down. Probably time for some standing bicycling. Let's try it with the hands right at the hip joint. So not resting on the upper portion of the hip structure, but right at that joint. So here's 8, we'll switch. Keep the chair handy. If you're more comfortable or feel more secure, being able to keep one hand resting lightly on the chair, that's fine. You're supporting yourself on that one leg, so there's balance involved. There's definitely strength work involved. Switching again. So the advantage to having your hand on the chair would be that you're going to be able to stay a little bit more still. When you're doing something like that, you want to be sure that whichever leg is the supporting one, so in this case we'll use this one as the support. We don't want to see that hip moving, wiggling side to side, tilting forward or back. We want it very stable. Now obviously when you have the chair for support, you're going to be even more stable. But the whole idea is to keep that hip joint held nice and firmly so that you're not wiggling or turning or doing anything that's going to irritate that hip joint. Those hips are too important, too vital. So when you're working without support for your hand, you're going to notice a little bit more motion. But still, there's not much at that hip. So it's holding nice and tight. You'll notice a little more, just a little bit more wiggle in the upper portion of the body. You can't take that away. But you want to be sure that that hip is really staying very firm, very stable. Again, can't emphasize enough the importance of making sure that you have good support for whatever it is that you might be doing. So, just going to do a few more of those little side lunges. Get your feet far enough apart and toeing out. And you kind of have to, at a point, you feel like you're hanging in midair. Keep your back nice and straight. This is one, again, talking strength for the legs, strength for the feet, good support. This is one that there could be a temptation to lean forward a little bit and feel as though, feel a little bit more secure. You want to keep the back nice and straight. And if it helps to have the arms out at the side, if that's kind of a reminder to keep your back straight, then arms out at the side. That's good for the arms and shoulders as well. And again, a little work for balance here. Definitely a lot of work for balance's partner, centering, to be sure that you feel secure in each of these positions and on the transition from one side to the other. Shoulders are staying level, back is straight. This doesn't look like a whole lot. It doesn't really feel like a whole lot right at first. And then after we kind of pile a few of these together, begin to realize that, it may not be a big flashy move, but those legs are doing a lot of work. And again, it doesn't look all that impressive, but it does start to make an impression on those muscles. So we just kind of want to loosen everything up. Really limp, loose arms. Very casual little roll with the feet. Okay, we're going to take feet apart. We'll put all the weight on that one foot. Bring the arm up and over. As you start to bend, just glance down toward the opposite foot. Hold that stretch just a bit. And come back up. Bring the arm down. Same thing, opposite side. And bring it back down. Now, weight-bearing foot. Almost all the weight on that one. The other foot, for convenience and comfort, probably lift the heel just a tiny bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. Makes it a little more comfortable. It's also a great reminder that, if you're only resting on the ball of that foot and the other foot is carrying the majority of the weight, that's a good reminder that that foot is basically an accessory at this point. And as we've spoken a few times, it could lift from the floor. It's not necessary, it's not even advisable. Taking a little bit of a chance. But that's in order to emphasize that all the weight is being carried, or almost all the weight, being carried on that one supporting leg. And then again, you take a look, and you've got foot, ankle, knee, hip, all the way up to the shoulder. Nice, straight, vertical line. Other foot is out there because it has to be somewhere. Bring that arm up and over. Nice, stretch. Same thing, opposite side. Nice, stretch and bend. Just look down toward that foot. Now, if that foot is flat, it's going to limit your bend a little bit. Not a lot, but a little. So get that heel raised just a tiny bit. In doing that, you're also getting some work for the very lower part of that leg. Just coming up from the back of the heel and ankle. So, just kind of nice and easy here. Just going one foot to the other, letting the arms move a little bit. Basically just a little bend at the elbow, not really an arm swing. So maybe we'll get some of the knee bends. We'll start with 2 with each. So 2 forward across, heel lift, 2 back, 2 backward across. We'll keep that pattern. What we're going to try to do is stay very firm on the standing leg. So even with the crossing motion, just going to try to plant that foot and keep it there. So 2 knee lifts forward, 2 knee lifts across, 2 heel lifts backward, 2 heel lifts backward across. Let's put the arms out. And forward across. Heel lift back. Back across. So we're holding really tight with that standing, supporting leg. Shoulders aren't moving. Arms aren't moving. Non-moving arms tire faster than moving arms. Cross. Heel back. And heel across. One more set through. Forward. Across. Heel lift back. Heel lift back across. Bring the arms down. That arm's lifted out to the side. Begins to fatigue the shoulder. Upper back a little bit, but mostly it's right at the shoulder. So we're just going to shift the weight from one foot to the other. Let the arms swing nice and easy. A little bit more slowly. Okay, feet together. Little knee spring and arm swing and arm lift here. So knee spring is bend, straighten, bend, straighten. So knee spring, lift around. Knee spring, lift around. Pretty easy. So knee spring, and then arm up and down. Arm up and down. It's giving the legs a chance to rest. It's keeping the arms involved. When you raise that arm, you're probably going to feel some work all the way down to mid to lower back. So that's going to be right across that portion from the waistline down to the base of the hip. That's the area of the back where you're going to feel that lift with the arm, feeling it at the shoulder also. But, you know, looks so basic, looks like not a whole lot, looks like work for the shoulders and the arms, maybe the upper back. But it's this portion of the back that really supports that move. So again, waist down almost to the base of the hip. And that's where you're going to feel that one. Okay, feet apart. We're going to get that bend down over the bend knee. So by this time, I think we should be pretty comfortable going fairly deep with that bend. Bring the hands into the center. Both knees are bent. Roll up. Keep yourself well centered on this. Don't get the feet too far, too widespread. Down. Into the center as both knees bend, or as the other knee bends, because the one is already bent. So, the one that's bearing the weight is bent. Into the center, both knees are bent. Rolling up, both knees straighten gradually. As you straighten up, kind of like one vertebra at a time. So down, in, and up. We'll put a shoulder roll at the end of that. Down, in, up. Yeah, roll upward is exactly what it sounds like. Down, in, as you start to come up, it straightens the lower portion of the back, comes up mid-back, comes up higher on the back. Finally, the shoulders settle back into place, and then we get that nice extra roll with the shoulders. So again, down, into the center, up, shoulders settle, and shoulders roll. Down, into the center, up, shoulders settle, shoulders roll. One more time. Down, into the center. Arms are just hanging. Weight on both feet. Be sure those heels are down securely. Rolling up, shoulders settle, shoulders roll. Reason I mentioned the heels. Be sure they're down firmly, because when you're coming back up from this position, in this position, it would be a temptation to let the heels release a little bit. Keep them down firmly. Rolling up. Shoulders settle. Shoulders roll. We haven't done any crisscross step. So we're just going to stay in place, crossing in front, then crossing in back. Just get a little work for the hip area there. Crossing in front. Do that twice. Crossing in back. Also twice. So obviously, since you're moving, you're going to be moving, you're going to have that sideward motion, because you want to get a pretty good amount of reach with that foot. You could do this if you were repeating with one leg at a time. You could do that without the movement in the torso. Both crossing in front and crossing in back. Torso's not going anywhere. The difference is when you're going one side, then the other side, obviously there has to be some movement in the torso because you're shifting the weight one foot to the other. Now either of those, we're going to do just one with each here. Either way on that, going to give you very similar work at the hip area. So either one is good. This one just involves moving around a little bit more. The action for hip and lower back is going to be pretty much the same. Again, stay with the one position. Foot just comes across out to the side, across out to the side, across out to the side. Go to the opposite side. And then back. So, stable position, movement or motion with the leg, going to accomplish basically the same thing either way. So the difference then is the amount of total movement when you're going one side to the other with that step and touch across, pressing behind. So, work for the legs and hips. Very similar, the big difference being that you get more side motion, more side sway, side shift, as opposed to a sway, which we might think more in terms of this. So that's why, shoulders level across, torso, core, very stable. Shoulder to hip, when that's all held stable, you're getting all those muscles involved in the torso to support that static or still position. So rather than, kind of this way, which we could do, and it's going to be basically the same thing for the legs. What it's not going to do is the same thing for the core, the same thing for the torso. So if we're going to work, we might as well get every single thing in terms of benefit. So that's why, keep it solid, keep it tight. That's what supports every move outward from the center, whether it's just little arm lifts. In other words, keep as much working as you can. And that would be the same in terms of leg lifts, just a little lift forward, not a whole lot. Obvious support from that standing leg. But then when you figure, okay, let's keep everything from hip to shoulder pretty well controlled. Again, we're getting the benefit for all of those muscles. Just get the feet apart again. We're just going to do a couple more of those nice bends before we sit down. So, weight onto that one foot. Bring the arm up and over. Get that heel lifted just a tiny bit. And come back to place. Same thing opposite side. Nice and slow. Keep your neck relaxed. If possible, get that arm as directly above the side of your head as possible. Gives you a better stretch, provided the shoulder and arm will tolerate it. And in most cases, I think they will. So, even without the arms, you certainly can get a nice side bend and stretch. Same weight distribution, same deal with the foot. You just kind of glance down toward it. You're getting a nice stretch up along that side and a nice bend. It's just that with the addition of the arm, it gives you so much more to work with. Gives significantly better stretch along the side. And again, if we're going to work, let's get as much benefit from it as we can. So, bring the arms forward, upward one more time. Just wiggle the fingers. Elbows are straight, but they're not stiff. We could make them absolutely straight. We could still get that arm motion, finger motion. We can let the arms relax a little bit and bring them down. Really slowly. And it is probably the time to grab that chair. Oh. Be sure when you're sitting, make sure the position of that chair so that, you know, everything we do, we want to try to do it safely, productively, gracefully works, but that's not the main point. The main point is safety in the way we move, well-supported moves, so that we don't find ourselves kind of hanging in midair briefly. Because the fact is that we can only hang in midair very briefly, and then it's going to go one way or the other. We're either going to pull in and recover, which a lot of the steps that we do, that's the whole idea, getting it back to the center. But that goes for seated as well. We're going to get some bicycling going. Maybe just 4 with each. So let the foot just raise the floor as you bring it down and back in. Kind of nice to work just 4 at a time. Doesn't overtire the moving leg. Gives it a chance, just a sufficient amount to rest. Also requires a little more frequent change of, if I say change of grip. You know, we're seated, we know that as we shift more of the weight onto one hip so the other leg is freer to move, we know that that makes our grip or our seated position just a little bit different. We're still, you know, thinking in terms of keeping the shoulders level across. So we're not doing this and rocking back and forth on a kind of on a slant, which we could do, I suppose, if there was any benefit to that, it would be possibly a minimal benefit in terms of muscles in the core. But those muscles are going to benefit more by holding us stable. We're just bouncing the heels a little bit here just to relax the legs a bit. So that nice, stable, seated position. A lot of times that's easier if you get the opposite arm involved. Still staying with 4. Does getting the opposite arm going make any difference in terms of the bicycling? I do think it makes it a little bit easier, and definitely involves the muscles along the front of the body significantly more. And even though we've been doing these only in sets of 4, my guess would be that the legs may be giving us a little message that says, enough already. So we'll take those feet out pretty wide. Just very slow and gentle. Folding just enough so the fingertips come just about mid-shin. And then slowly come back on up. So your back is not rounding over. You're not slouching or slumping. You're keeping the back very straight and just folding forward at the hip. Fingertips come down a little bit farther. Keep the feet relaxed. If anything, toes are nearly pointed. One more. So pretty good chance that each of these has gotten a little bit more relaxed and you've been able to get down a little bit deeper. So on this last one, be sure you relax the torso, You probably exhale as you start to fold forward. Just bring those fingertips down and bring them back up. Just let that foot slide on its side. Just changes the work at the hip a little bit. So 4 each way. The foot can slide or it can remain lifted, and that's your choice. And I won't say that it makes a big difference. It probably makes a little difference in terms of the work lower on the front of the torso. So those abdominal muscles on that side, and you know, those muscles get right down toward the hip. That whole area being worked a little bit harder if you keep the foot lifted. And it's certainly not a major difference. Let's call it at least some difference. Take the hand down to the foot. Bring it back up. So just alternating sides for now. Alternating again. Other side. So this one pretty relaxed actually. Just one more. So pretty easy on that. Bring that foot in toward the center. So just draw yourself a straight line, straight forward. And that's the line you're meeting. You're not coming across it. Well, tiny bit maybe, but that's not our aim. Our target is center line, right straight forward. Working the muscles along the inner side of the thigh, outer side of the thigh to a little bit lesser degree. Entire hip structure. Lower back to provide support. Muscles across the front of the torso, particularly lower, although you can even feel those muscles kind of up pretty close to the solar plexus area. Just one foot, then the other foot. And bring those feet in nice and close. Just let the heels raise and lower. Not doing a whole lot here, just getting some nice good circulation back through those legs. Relaxing them a little bit. So, feet are down. One foot slides forward, the hands come down. Exhale as you bring those fingertips down. You're probably going to come pretty close to the ankle on that first attempt. Maybe even a little bit more toward the instep. So exhaling as you start to fold down. And coming back up. Don't be surprised if one side is a little bit freer than the other side. It's going to depend on a lot of things. So again, you know that your dominant or stronger side very often is slightly less flexible. If you've had any kind of a stress, any kind of a strain, that's going to show itself, especially in a long move like that. So we're just keeping the lower portion of the leg straight up and down, taking the knee out. If you just keep the lower portion of the leg relaxed, the foot basically flat, foot can touch down, both inner side and outer side. So from starting point to target, you can keep that foot flat. It can set down just briefly. Work around the back of the hip on this one, in addition to inner and outer side of the thigh. If you keep that foot lifted just a little bit, Don't let that lower portion of the leg swing and sway. It's still staying on a nice, neat, vertical line. So the lower portion of the leg is perpendicular to the floor, and that goes for when the foot slides, touches down, or remains lifted. Advantage to keeping the foot lifted. A little bit more workload on the hip. So back of the hip is what's working a little bit harder here with that foot remaining raised. Is it a big difference? Probably not huge, but there is a bit of a difference there. Slowly folding, bringing the fingertips down, probably just to the ankle or less than that at this point, and coming back up. Keep in mind, when we were doing those side motions, we were putting a good amount of work on the very back of the hip, base of the hip. So, when we get those feet extended and get them apart and start to fold down, we are then stretching out many of those same muscles that we were using for that side motion. So that's why, we don't try for the maximum stretch here. We just try to relieve and release those muscles while we have the feet out. Hand comes down, hand comes across, leaning back. So you lean back almost straight up. It doesn't have to be absolutely straight at the front of the hip, but we're getting close. So reaching, across, up, and around, reaching, coming across, up, and around. And here again, very possible that these reaches are not going to be absolutely even, because one side may be a little bit more resistant than the other. Just bring that arm to the back, up, over, and down. Bring it back to place. Same thing, opposite side. Bring it back to place. Nice reach. Back. Big reach. One more. And back. One more with this arm. Quite a bit of work done with those legs pretty well extended, and in several cases feet pretty far apart. So what we're going to do, adjust on the chair a little bit, bring those ankles in and crisscross them. You know what that does, takes away part of your support. So now you're going to be working harder with the torso, with the muscles in the core. Just bring one arm up. Back down. Up. Back down. So, moving part, arm and shoulder. Non-moving part, entire torso, legs. They're staying still, but they certainly aren't very relaxed when you're resting almost on the toes and you have those ankles crossed. So what looks like a very basic arm raise is involving pretty much the entire body. Let's loosen those legs up a little bit. So we'll crisscross the ankles again, maybe the opposite way if you remember which one was in front before, just push that one to the back. So again, In this case, an arm raise outward. And again, the moving part is the one that will be noticed. So, to the observer, a phrase that we use frequently in class. To anyone watching, this looks pretty easy. The arm motion is what's noticeable. It's a nice little workout for the shoulder. But in the meantime, the entire torso is working to keep us seated firmly, to keep our back nice and straight. The legs are working because they can't really relax and rest when we're just resting on the toes and have the ankles crossed. So, if this was just this way, with feet just a reasonable distance apart, maybe 5 or 6 inches, that's a restful pose for the legs. Crossed ankles, knees pulled in tight. That's a non-restful pose for the legs. So, each of those little differences either makes an exercise easier or more difficult. And I won't say difficult so much as a little bit more challenging. We have the feet apart. Let's just fold forward, relax the torso, take the hands down, bring them back up. Lift, again, picturing that center line, a lift slanting outward, and then just a tap with the toes. So we're keeping the hands pretty much fingertips to the knees. So the legs fully straighten again. Moving down, moving back up. Lift, again, picturing that invisible center line. A lift out on a slant, straight knees. Let the knees relax a little bit. Just bounce the toes up and down. So one more, straight knees. Down, up. Lift to that center line. Lift to the center line. Slanting outward. All of this is being done keeping a really good grip with the torso. Maybe we'll do just one more of those. So, straight knees. From this point on, torso holds, core muscles hold very firmly. It comes up to that center line. Holding tight, hips to shoulders. Bring that foot in across, maybe twice. It relaxes the hip and shoulder, the hip area a little bit. Gives everything pretty much a chance to relax. And then very slight bend with the knees and just a little bumps with the toes. Okay. Bring the arms forward and upward. Inner side of the hand, so thumbs together. Get those arms up as straight overhead as you can. And that's not an easy thing to do because then you're calling on the muscles at the upper back and also the lower back. So you want those arms as much straight overhead as possible. And bring them forward, downward nice and slowly, and you can feel the amount of control that takes. Roll the shoulders, pull the feet in a little bit closer. So you're resting on the balls of the feet. Just take that foot forward, outward, around. Maybe 4 circles. When you get to that outer part of the circle, make sure you keep as much of your foot flat on the floor as possible. Just to work those muscles along the outer side of the lower portion of the leg so that they are willing to be stretched. You want to keep as much range of motion at the ankle as possible. everywhere else too, for that matter. One more. Maybe once more, we're going to put those feet out fairly wide. Exhale as you start to fold forward. Pull back on, up. Fingertips right by the knee. Hip to shoulder, held very firmly, lifting to the center. Lifting to the center. Lifting out on a slant. So really, the upper portion of the leg hasn't moved on that. It really doesn't move here either, other than the fact that you bend the knee and then pull the feet in a tiny bit. Just tap those toes. Okay, we're going to pull the feet in. Get that arm resting over the top of the steering wheel. And reach around to the back of the other car seat. Same thing, opposite direction. So you're turning your head enough to follow the action of the arm. Keeps you looking toward the side and a little bit toward the back. Good amount of reach and stretch there. One more time. Bring the hands around, place the palms down on the back of the chair. Turn and look one direction. Come slowly back to the center. Turn and look opposite direction. Center, turn. Turn. Release the hands. Let them just kind of fold and lay right by your knees. Keep your back straight. Tuck the chin down. And then come up just to a nice straight neck. Again, tuck your chin down. And straight. So you just bring your nose and chin up level. One more turn. When you have your hands resting gently in your lap like this, rather than arms behind you, rather than having the hands palms down, just be aware of what's happening at the upper back. As you turn, and come back to place. And turn, and come back to place. Feel the shift of emphasis, one side to the other, upper back. Say, directly across shoulder to shoulder. So directly across the back, shoulder to shoulder. A little bit lower than that. And feel as you turn one way and come back through the center and turn the opposite way. And back to the center. So you feel the difference in the emphasis on those muscles of the upper back. Kind of nice to do that every now and again. Just be aware of how much work you're doing with what may seem to be a very simple move. We're just swinging the arms here. No big deal. Heels are lifting and lowering a little bit. We could probably raise one foot and the other foot. As arms come forward, legs are pretty relaxed. It's just a little lift with the foot. Doesn't go to fully straightened knee. It doesn't have to. The action of beginning to straighten the knee, even when you don't go fully straight. That's all work for the quadricep muscle, big muscle on the front of the thigh. It's the one that straightens your knee. And I believe we need to stretch a little bit because I think we're pretty close to the end of our time here. Just want to say before we hit that last couple of stretches, thank you for joining us. Hope this has been helpful. Certainly not the same as having you all right here in class. And I can pretty well guess that it's not quite the same for you either. But we're doing something. And with things evolving as they are, looks like at some point, no promises and timeline, at some point we're going to be back really much closer to what we're all accustomed to. And that will be a great day. So let's stand up, stretch a little bit, get that chair out of the way. Feet apart. Just bring that arm in across a little bit. Take it up over, slightly slanting backward. Again. And again. Told you before, it's a good thing sometimes that, well, all the time. Good thing I'm not working with a microphone attached, because if I was doing that, each time that arm goes around and hits a certain point, you'd hear that little scritch, crunch, bump, thump in that shoulder. No pain, just some strange noises every now and again. It happens. So, putting all the weight on that one foot, bringing the arm up and over. Same thing, opposite side. Hand placement along that, well, resting leg, if we call it that. That's optional. You don't have to have the hand sliding down toward the knee. It probably is a good reminder to get your head turned just a little bit and to go into that as relaxed as possible with as nice a side bend as possible. Slight raise with that heel. One more each way. Good. Nice big stretch. Big roll with the shoulders. Lifting. Jay has returned. I don't know if he has any updates, but we'll ask him. And in the meantime, thanks for being with me.
Yeah, no real updates. Still excited for being able to do more inside starting next week, so just stay tuned. Again, we keep talking about it. Our plan is to continue in some way, shape, or form, even when we do have classes here at the Rec Center, including Silver and Fit and Swedish Fitness, is to have some kind of live recording, whether it's on Facebook Live or something we just record and put on our YouTube channel. Because we do know that oftentimes people miss a class, they want to be able to do it on their own, or some of you just might not quite feel comfortable yet, and we want to be sensitive to that. So we're going to continue doing it. I think that's something that will be with us as we move forward, certainly. But other than that, we'll see you, hopefully some of you guys tomorrow for Silver and Fit, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right, awesome job.